Hey guys, how are you? Today I'm going to show you how to remove your rear springs and shocks or struts from the rear of a 126 car, 126 Mercedes, which would be, I don't know, 380, 420, 560 SEL or SEC. This is a non-SLS car, SLS being self-leveling suspension, meaning if you have the hydraulic spheres in the back, it'll be a little bit different, but not too much. You'll have to disconnect a few hydraulic lines, but this will give you the basics on how to tear all that out. So in order to even get the springs out, you first have to get the shocks out. And first thing you want to do, and keep in mind this car is inoperable at the moment. I was in the middle of doing this and I figured it'd be better to film this and put it up because I didn't see anything on the internet about it. So you're going to remove your rear seat. Easiest way to remove your rear seat, this is the bottom of the seat that goes right here. There's a little spring thing right there. You see that? There's one on each side of it. Push them in and that releases them from these pins. Pull that out and then you'll have access to the seat back. You can push that up. There is, if you have problems with that, there is this lever you can play with right here. This is the spring that holds tension on that. So get that out, pull this soundproofing back, and right back here you're going to have this weird oblong shaped cover, and then this clear cover up here. You're going to take this clear cover off. Underneath there is going to be this right here. It's actually going to look like this. It's going to have this bushing on there. It's going to have this top piece on there, and it's going to have two nuts on there locking it down. If these nuts, so these nuts have to spin independent of this. This has to stay still while these nuts spin off. If it is trying to move with the nuts, you can either grab this with a pair of vice grips, or you can independently put a wrench on this bottom one and put a wrench on the top one and spin them opposite ways in order to loosen this top one, and that'll help hold this still. And you can get that top one off, then you can work the bottom one off. You have to take these off because this is the top of your shock mount here, and your shocks are going to drop out from below. So if this is held up here, it won't let it drop. Now you're going to do that on both sides in the back seat there, and then you're going to get a 21 mil or what, 13/16 I believe. You're going to loosen all lug nuts a little bit, and then we're going to put this car in the air, and I'll show you that. Okay, so the lug nuts are loosened. I have my jack under here. I'm going to be lifting by the rear differential, which is this thing right in the center of your axles. Let me lifting from that thing. You can see it going up. And we want to get it high enough to where the tires are off the ground, and we can take them off. And then we're going to throw jack stands underneath. Take your tire, shove it under there. And then my jack stand here is going to go right underneath this pad. You see this jack pad right here? That's what the jack stand's underneath. And then as an extreme backup, I have the tire down here, which would just, the body would fall on if this ever happened to fall off the jack stand. So now the car is resting on the jack stands and then the safety backup of the tire. Now what we're going to do is I'm putting the jack underneath the very end of this control arm, and I'm going to put a little bit of pressure up like that to relieve a little bit of the pressure. That way I can get to the shock mount on the bottom here. There is a bolt on each side that I have to take off. I think they're 17. Let me check. All right, they are 17. And I have my 17 millimeter on my DeWalt. I don't use Milwaukee because I'm a real boy. Okay, that one's out. Now that one's out. You can see the shock wanting to fall now, right? That's because we took it out of the top perch there. So we can get this shock out if we have enough travel here. Let me look. We might need to raise the car up a little bit more, or just move the jack out of the way. I'm going to raise this lower control arm up with the jack just a little bit more. Okay, now the shock should have enough angle. Come on out of there. There we go. Shock is out. Now the only thing left in there is the spring, right? Now that spring, right, if I let this jack down, this whole assembly should move down enough, and the spring is, this lower control arm, the spring sits right on top of it. So this should bring it down enough to where I can just pop that spring out. But just to be sure we get enough, the only thing that would hang this up and not let it drop down all the way is this right here. It looks like a sway bar, but it can't be a sway bar. There's no way. I mean, it is this. It's my finger is thicker than it. So a trailing arm, I don't know what you would call it, but this is the mount right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go underneath, and we are going to take this fastener and this fastener out. They look like 15s, but I'm not totally sure. Let's get a 15mm socket and see if it fits on there. Okay, it is actually going to be a 13. I was wrong. One bolt out. I'm going to remove the bolts from the other end of it down on the other side real quick. When I took the other end out, this whole thing fell down perfectly. So now we're going to let the jack down and see if this all falls down to where this spring will just come right out. Doesn't look like it was quite enough. I'm going to get a pry bar and put it right under this pocket here and see if I can pry this spring up. Before I pry too much, and I can't stress this enough, if it's not easy to get out, use a spring compressor. I'm trying to take a shortcut and we're going to see if it works. If it doesn't, I will get a spring compressor. Okay, so it didn't get low enough with removing the trailing arm / sway bar here. So still what you can do is get spring compressors. I'm trying to do this without getting spring compressors. It just seems like a hassle, although this is probably a hassle as well. But the other thing you can do is you have 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts up here. These two, and then there's 2 on the other side, and that holds up the rear differential. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this jack underneath the rear differential, just like that. And then I'm going to take these bolts out. I'm taking one of these bolts out. What I'm going to do is I have the jack under, let me let that down. I have the jack under the rear diff that will let it kind of come down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the thread of this. I'm going to find the thread size of this and I'll probably have some bolts laying around that are like 4 inches long. So I'm going to thread one 4-inch bolt into here and then caddy corner on the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. That'll keep it when it drops, it'll stay in line to where I raise it back up. I don't got to fiddle around with it. The last thing I want to do underneath this car is be fiddling around with it as much as I would have to get this all lined up. So I think that'll let it line up really easy, because all we have to do is drop this just a little bit. Okay, and so this bolt size is M8 by 1.25, and I happen to have a longer one. It's only like 3 inches long, but if I get that threaded in there, that'll let me let this diff down like 2 inches here. Okay, now you have a good angle. I'm going to lower this jack just a little bit, and you should be able to see the tension release over there and let that spring have even more slack. So let's see. I got about 2 inches and that bolt's holding there. So when I put this back up, I can just thread those other bolts right back in. And I think I have enough slack to where I can take that spring out now just by hand. If you can see, I'm using a pry bar here. This spring is definitely loose in there. I just need to get it out towards the rear diff, and that'll let it out of this pocket up here, the top of the spring. There's a bump stop right here that is connected to the lower control arm, and this bump stop hits that stop, so that's as low as you can go. So if I was able to go like an inch lower, this spring would I could just pull it out. Right now I'm trying to fight it with a pry bar. It's loose in here. Like it's loose in here. It's just not quite loose enough. This is up to you whether you want to do this or not. This is what I'm going to do, because this is just a parts car. I'm going to lop this ear off right here, and that'll let this control arm come down a little bit more. The only reason they had this, and this is a fact, is people would watch Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze and think they were Patrick Swayze and go off-roading in their 560 ICC through fences and over. And who knows, somebody ramped it. If you ramp it, the lower control arm is just going to, they're going to fall down. They're going to fall down, and then it would snap your brake lines. There's already enough tension on that brake line. So that's why they did that. And I'm kidding about that. It's just a safety thing. So when you have your car jacked up and somebody's servicing it, it doesn't put a bunch of tension on your brake line and snap it. But this is a parts car, and I'm going to cut that brake line, and I'm going to zip that off. Now, if there was a bolt on the other side, that would be nice, but this is just welded on here. So there's not a bolt in there that's connected to the subframe. There's just this housing here. There's just this ear here, and then this flange here, whatever, that rests on it when the control arm comes down. So I'm going to snip that off. Should you do this to your car? I mean, honestly, why not? You lop that off, take your brake caliper off, you'll have all the slack in the world to just zip them out. So that's up to you. It's an intense personal decision you have to make. But also at a point, it becomes less convenient than just going and renting the spring compressor from O'Reilly's. So, whatevs. Only thing left holding us up is our brake line, which in your case right now, you would be taking your brake caliper off. In my case, I'm doing the easy thing and cutting the brake line. Look at that. It just falls out now. Spring out. Do the same thing for the other side. And this is that little perch I was telling you about that goes on top of the spring.